Welcome to the second webcast for Allerton Building Suite 3. I'm Phil Smith, Product Manager of ABS. Today we're going to pick up where we left off on our last webcast, which was the installation of Allerton Building Suite. Today we're going to focus on installing WebtalkVM. We know there's a lot of people out there that have limited experience installing a VM, and today we want to focus on showing you how to install WebtalkVM. Before you get started though, it's a good idea to go to the ASN and go to the Allerton Building Suite product page and check out the data sheet for WebTalk and also read the Getting Started guide. Doing this will help you immensely as you try to watch this webcast today. Once again, we are joined by John Geffey from Allerton Tech Support, who will guide us through the installation process for WebtalkVM. Here's John.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to go ahead and start with our WebtalkVM installation by making sure we've got a few things already running on my Windows 7 computer. I'm going to make sure that Windows Virtual PC is already installed or running. And you can tell if you've already installed Windows XP mode, then it'll show up here and already installed. It's key on Windows 7. If you don't have Windows Virtual PC already installed, you can go into Add Remove Programs and actually enable it as a Windows feature and turn that on. So I've already got it installed, so now I'm going to put my Allerton Building Suite 3.0 DVD in the drive and let it auto run, and I will get a splash screen here to start the installation. If you don't have auto run enabled on your computer, you will need to browse to the WebtalkVM setup program on the DVD itself. Windows 7 requires a few security questions. The administrator to get that to run. I'm going to select Allerton Building Suite 3 in the splash screen, WebtalkVM 2.5 install. We go down to correct section here, install WebtalkVM, run. Next, accept, next, next. Typical installation will install WebtalkVM in the C drive, Allerton, BackTalk 3.0, WebTalk virtual machines. If I do a custom installation, I could select where I want to install it, or I can install the WebTalk ISO image. If I'm going to be doing a VMware installation, that'll be available. I'm going to go with the typical installation and let the installer detect what operating system I have and what virtualization software to install. Of course, we already have Windows Virtual PC installed. Should look at the Allerton Building Suite Getting Started guide for details of what virtualization technology will be installed or is required for what operating system you are using. Now that the installer has successfully installed, we're going to click Finish. There are a few more steps here that are going to happen. It's going to try and detect our hardware virtualization support. So if that's not enabled in your BIOS, you'll need to figure out how to enable that in your BIOS. Most computers are different on how you get into the BIOS, so you'll have to consult your PC manufacturer for those instructions. WebtalkVM installation is complete. This is the pop-up we just got. We can go ahead and close the browser. Okay, now that WebtalkVM is installed, we'll go ahead and finish the installation and setup by checking the Windows Virtual PC. We will have to create a virtual machine. We'll name this WebtalkVM. We'll browse to our Webtalk installation, which, as I mentioned earlier, the default will be on the C drive, Allerton, BackTalk 3.0, WebtalkVM, WebTalk virtual machines, select OK, we'll select Next. We'll just leave these at the default, 512 megabytes of RAM. Next, create. And at this point, we'll need to do the settings for the WebTalk virtual machine, which includes modifying the network adapters because WebTalk requires 2 adapters. Just go ahead and change this so I'm using the same network card in my computer. And that's really all we should need to change in this configuration. Now we'll go ahead and start WebtalkVM for the first time, double-clicking on the icon. And for those of you that are familiar with the iPort installation, these screens should be very familiar because they would be identical to what you would see if you had a monitor and keyboard connected to the iPort, or if you were using HyperTerminal and a laptop connected to the console port of the iPort. This is the exact same configuration. When we get to the final screen, we can log in with config and pass, define the IP address for the browser, the subnet mask, and the gateway. Or if we're using DHCP, we can figure out what IP address the iPort has gotten from the DHCP server. So for more information on that installation, I would recommend going to the WebTalk product page and downloading the installation and operation guide for WebTalk. Now, Phil, that we're waiting for this to load up, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, John, so for people that are installing this, we're doing this all on one machine, and most people do that, but every once in a while somebody asks, is it a good idea to install WebtalkVM on a separate machine? Why would you do that?
You could install this on a separate computer altogether. WebTalk is not required to be installed on the same computer as the Envision for BackTalk server. It's designed, WebtalkVM is really designed to replace the iPort, which was a separate PC. So whether it's good for your system or not really depends on your IT department, your familiarity with computers. WebtalkVM is basically WebTalk, so you still require a connection to the server in order to log in and do those functions. But technically, you can install it either on the same computer or a different computer. It's all about your specific installation.
So let's say that you had installed WebtalkVM on a machine at another site and you lost power on your main server. Would that give you the ability to show displays still via the internet?
Right. WebTalk is the same WebTalk that it was, just now you're running in a virtual environment. So you couldn't log into WebTalk if the server was not running before. So there's no way to log into WebTalk if the server's not running now, just because you're running in a virtual environment. It still has that dependency of the server to keep track of who's logged in, any changes that were made to the system, that type of stuff. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log in with config and pass on this screen. And this is where the installation should be familiar to everybody. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, John, and thanks everybody for watching. That's our webcast for today. Be sure and join us next time as we show you how to set up and configure the Allerton Energy dashboard. Special thanks to John Geffey and Mike Jorgensen, and from Allerton World Headquarters in Redmond, Washington, I'm Phil Smith. Thank you.